I buried my husband, and just moments after the last shovel of dirt hit his casket, I received a message from him. It said, "I am still alive. That's not me in the casket. Trust no one." My name is Eleanor Vance and I'm 62 years old. What I am about to tell you is the story of how I buried my husband, Robert, only to learn that the men who lowered his casket were the same ones who had betrayed him. The funeral for Robert was the quietest, coldest day of my life. He was a dedicated mechanic who ran the Ridge Auto Shop for over 4 decades in our small Tennessee town, Harmony Ridge. As the final words were spoken, right there, beside the fresh mound of earth over his grave, my phone vibrated. It was an unfamiliar number. I opened the message and the words froze the air in my lungs. "I am still alive. That's not me in the casket. Trust no one." My hands trembled violently as I replied, "Who are you?" The response took my breath away. "I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons." That moment tore a hole in my reality. I looked up at my 2 sons, Lucas and Ethan. Lucas, the eldest, had a strangely calm face, while Ethan seemed restless. Their tears seemed manufactured. Their grief a performance. Something was profoundly wrong. For 45 years, Robert had been my constant. I met him when I was 23. We were married a year later. We grew up poor, sharing modest dreams and relying on real love. When Lucas and Ethan were born, Robert was a wonderful father. He taught them about engines, took them fishing down by the Holston River, and always had a funny story before bed. We were a close family, or so I fiercely believed. As the boys grew, things began to change. Lucas was fiercely ambitious. He'd constantly question why we lived so modestly and why we didn't have a new truck. When Robert offered Lucas a job at the shop, he refused with open contempt. "I don't want to get my hands dirty like you, Dad. I'm going to be important." Those words chipped away at Robert's soul, though he never spoke of the pain. I'd see him sitting on the porch at night, gazing at the stars with a deep sadness. His son had rejected not only his livelihood but his entire way of life. To my surprise, Lucas did make a name for himself. He moved to the city and got a job at a major corporate investment firm. Ethan followed soon after. They started making money, more money than Robert and I had ever imagined. First I was proud, but that pride soured into dread. Visits grew sparse and phone calls were clipped. When they did visit, they arrived in expensive foreign cars, wearing custom-tailored suits, discussing stocks and million-dollar properties. They looked at our humble home with a mix of pity and shame. "Mom," Lucas insisted during one short visit, "you and Dad need to move. This house is falling apart. It's embarrassing." He was right about the house, but it was our home. It held every memory of our life together. Robert, ever the quiet philosopher, looked at me one night. "Ellie, the money has poisoned them. We are just an uncomfortable reminder of the past they want to erase." The distance became a gulf when Lucas married Tiffany, a sleek city woman who made no attempt to hide her disdain for our life. The first time Lucas brought her over, she arrived in stiletto heels that immediately sank into the dirt of our driveway. She barely touched the home-cooked chicken dinner I made, moving the pieces around her plate with a surgical precision. "Next time we're taking them out to a real restaurant," Lucas whispered to Tiffany, thinking I couldn't hear. Every word pierced my heart. The pressure intensified. Lucas and Ethan bought expensive properties. They started making suggestions. "You should sell this old place and move into a managed retirement community," Tiffany suggested, her fake smile glued in place. "They have great medical care for people your age." Community. After 45 years of building a home, they wanted to pack us off. "We don't need a home, Tiffany," Robert replied, his dignity unwavering. "We're fine here." But I saw the cold calculation in my son's eyes. We were a burden to be solved. Then came the direct assault. Lucas arrived with official-looking documents he'd prepared without our knowledge. "Dad, Mom," he said, using the fake, practiced smile of a salesman, "this house is worth maybe $80,000. If you sell it, I can add some money, and you can move somewhere better. Besides," he continued, not pausing for breath, "Dad needs to retire. He's 73. It's time to rest." "Son," Robert replied, his voice heavy with sadness, "work keeps me alive. It gives my days meaning." "But you could get hurt, Dad," Ethan insisted, backing his brother up. An accident at your age would be dangerous. Their words sounded caring, but the urgency beneath them was terrifying. The following months were tense. They brought real estate agents to appraise the house without our permission. They introduced the idea of an early inheritance, asking for money while we were still alive. "When your mother and I die, everything we have is yours," Robert stated firmly. "But while we're alive, our decisions are our own." The night they left, Robert looked at me with genuine fear. "Something is wrong, Ellie. This isn't just greed. There's something darker behind all this pressure." I had no idea how horribly right he was. I couldn't imagine that my sons were planning a tragedy that wouldn't be an accident of fate, but a conspiracy carefully orchestrated for money. The event that changed everything happened on a Monday morning. Robert was rushed to the hospital after a supposed compressor explosion at his shop. He died 3 days later. From the moment of the accident, the boys were obsessed with the life insurance policy and workman's compensation. When I saw him in the ICU, he was unrecognizable. I held his hand. Over the next 3 days, Lucas and Ethan spent more time talking to the doctors about insurance than comforting their father. "Mom, we reviewed Dad's policies. He has a life insurance policy for $75,000, Lucas said, his tone clinical. I snapped, "I don't care about the money. I just want your dad to get better." On the third day, the doctor gave us the devastating news. Lucas and Ethan exchanged a look. "Mom, we have to be practical," Lucas stated. "Dad wouldn't want to live like this. He always said he never wanted to be a burden." They were calculating costs while he was dying. That night, alone with Robert, I told him I couldn't let him go. Then his fingers squeezed mine. His lips moved, trying to communicate. 2 days later, Robert was declared dead. The single message from the funeral became my weapon. I started digging. I found that Lucas had helped Robert update his life insurance policy just 6 months earlier, increasing the payout dramatically. At the bank, the manager showed me recent large withdrawals that Lucas helped Robert make, using his father's tired eyes as an excuse. The signature looked like Robert's, but it was shaky. The bank manager remembered Lucas being present. The insurance was their idea. A new message arrived. "They convinced Robert it was for you. It was a trap." My final message led me to the local police station. Sergeant Martinez looked confused when I asked about Robert's accident report. "There was no work accident report here, Mrs. Vance," he said. "Your husband arrived at the hospital, but the medical report I have states symptoms of poisoning. The medical team found traces of methanol. Poisoning. It had been murder. Why wasn't I told?" I cried. "The immediate family who signed the papers requested the information be kept confidential. They said you were too fragile." The immediate family. Lucas and Ethan. Lucas and Ethan had taken control of the hospital documentation before the police were even notified. The report stated that doctors found traces of methanol, and my sons, the immediate family, had signed papers requesting the poisoning information be kept confidential. I then met Sam Miller, who had been sending me the messages. Sam was an old friend of Robert's who had been investigating the boys at Robert's request. Robert had secretly hired Sam Miller, a private investigator, weeks before the accident, fearing that our sons were being driven by something far more dangerous than simple greed. Sam admitted he wrote the message to shock me into reacting quickly before my sons erased all the evidence. He played the audio recordings. The truth was worse than I imagined. The recordings confirmed that Lucas and Ethan had coldly planned Robert's death for the insurance money and the equity from the house sale. They also planned to have me declared incompetent to gain control of my remaining assets. I filed the report and presented every piece of evidence. The recorded conversations, the bank fraud, the forged insurance papers, and the medical confirmation of poisoning. The arrests of Lucas and Ethan Vance shocked Harmony Ridge. The trial was long and painful, but the truth was undeniable. They were found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. They were both sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I lost my sons, but I found my peace. I used the insurance money to establish the Robert Vance Foundation, which offers legal aid to elderly victims of financial abuse. I still visit Robert's grave every Sunday. His headstone now reads, "Robert Vance, beloved husband, betrayed father, honorable man. I learned that true love is stronger than betrayal." I found the truth, I sought justice, and I turned our pain into hope. Robert, wherever you are, I hope you know your death was not in vain, my love.